Hello and welcome to our Spotlight videos where we discuss cutting edge employment law issues in the news. I'm Tom Spiggle, founder of the Spiggle Law Firm, a firm that helps people who have been fired or afraid that they might be. I'm thrilled today to have Ivy Best with us. She is an attorney in my office. And Ivy, I think we're going to talk about the EEOC today. Is that right?
That's right. And I think specifically how hard it can be as an employee without legal representation to get through the EEOC process.
Yeah, no, and I know you just talked to, this is a common and hot topic. You just talked to a reporter about this. So what do you think as an attorney and what you see? Like, what can people expect? Like, you know, from the EEOC? Like, how does it work? What can they expect?
So, something that I tell a lot of clients who aren't going through the process with a lawyer, they're going through the process alone, is they're going to have a lot of delay, right? It might take them months to even get to someone at the EEOC who will help them write their EEOC charge. Once they get the charge done, they're going to be waiting months or even years to finish the EEOC process. So it can be burdensome, and it can be a long and difficult process to get the EEOC to help you file a charge and get that charge to the employer.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I know what your perspective is, but when I'm advising people, I'm like, don't expect the EEOC to help. Like, be pleasantly surprised if they do, but I mean, you've got to, I think this is the confusing part for people, which I totally get. Like, you've got to do it, right, to preserve your claim, right? If you don't file, you can be in trouble. But then you file, and, 99% of the time, you're going to get kicked out after, I mean, many months. It could be, in some cases, years, before the EEOC finally does something, and then it's sort of they issue that your right to sue, which you need, right, to proceed. But it's sort of like, wah, wah, really,
Yeah. Right. I tell people expect from them what you would expect from any government agency, from the federal government bureaucracy. Expect red tape, expect inefficiency. Think IRS, think Social Security Administration. That's what you're dealing with.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, the good thing about the EEOC, I mean, for the vast majority of people that file there, they're not going to be, I mean, it's not because they're bad people, but they're underpaid and overwhelmed and, they got a lack of resources. When they do take cases, they're very good, like they are very pro-employee. One good thing about the EEOC, it's not mandatory, but there is mediation through the EEOC. Um, I find it to be less effective than other forms of mediation, but it's still an opportunity to get to the table. I have, as you probably have had some cases resolved at the EEOC, which is, of course, great. So it's mostly a placeholder, with a little bit of action going on. But I get it. Like people are like, oh, I'm filing a charge with the EEOC, this federal agency that's going to help me. And that's just not the case.
Right. Well, like I told the reporter today, at minimum, what the EEOC does give people is at least sometimes a chance to be heard, to get to that mediation, like you
Yeah.
mentioned, or to at least get an investigator to listen to them and hear their story. And I think for a lot of our clients, that's something they desperately need. That might be the
Yeah.
most important thing to them,
Yeah.
is just to be heard and to be listened to. And the EEOC can help accomplish that goal at minimum, which is a great thing about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, to your point about what you'd expect out of any government agency, it sort of depends on the investigator that you draw, right? Some investigators are great and they get in there and they really pay attention and they're, doing the best that they can. Some of them, you can just tell they're dialing it in. And some of them are, I mean, this is somewhat rare, but it's not unheard of, are openly hostile to employees, which is
Right.
super, depressing when that happens.
Yeah.
And and I think the other thing to consider, are related agencies, right? Like you can file, depending which state you're in. For example, if you're in DC, you got the DC Office of Human Rights, um, which is a similar process, but mediation is mandatory as opposed to permissive, like it is in the EEOC. And so that can be helpful too. It's a chance to get to the table because often it's the first time, particularly if the other side has an attorney, that they hear from you, right? Until from the employee, because until then it's all been on paper. And sometimes if you can get people face to face, which is true in any walk of life, you can move the ball and get things done. Um, so it's not all a lost cause, but I do understand people thinking, oh, this is the federal government coming to help me. It's like, What do you
Right.
think? What do we think? We have a little bit of time left, but what do you think for people who are trying to do it without an attorney?
What I love to see when I meet people who've been through the process without an attorney, I get really excited when I see that they've been advocating for themselves aggressively. They're following up constantly. They are really speaking up to make sure that, their point is heard. And that's important when you are dealing with, an investigator who has a ton of cases in front of them. You've got to advocate for yourself. So if you're going through it alone, I would say do not be afraid to advocate for yourself, send follow-up emails, be very clear, be direct. Don't be afraid of that because, this is your charge. Your name is going to go on it, not that
Right.
investigator's name. You got to speak up for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Be the squeaky wheel. I think that's great advice. All
Yeah.
right, Ivy, this has been great. I appreciate you taking a few minutes today, and I'll let you get to the next thing on your desk.
Thank you, Tom. Have a good
All
one.
right. You too.